Sunday No Huddle continues with Robert Rosenthal from IlliniBoard.com. Robert, now that we've had a chance to kind of decompress here, take a breath.
Yes.
How are we feeling after all the news today?
I mean, for the fan side of me, it's hard to separate the news today from yesterday. You play your football rival, you lose. You play your basketball rival, you lose. And then you fire the coach the next day. It's a roller coaster of, it's hard initially. My reaction to any coaching change is initially it's really difficult to see so many people lose their jobs. From secretaries to people just on analyst staffs and things like that. It's a big upheaval. It's a really tough day to overturn the entire football building. But from the analyst side of me, it was absolutely time. This was the season talked about for 5 years. Lovey himself referenced 2020 as being, that's when we're going to have all these seniors. That's where we're going to have the team that everyone around here will rally behind. And when you go 2-5, it's obviously just didn't make that mark.
Even through a pandemic, did it surprise you that Josh made this move, considering how much the DIA is already in the red, and this is going to further that even more?
It very much did. I was obviously asked that question by friends and people on Twitter and everything else over the last few months. Do you think it'll happen? Do you think it'll happen? My response was always, I don't know if the finances can work out. There were articles this fall suggesting maybe only 5 coaching changes in all of college football this year because of it. So I held to that of saying it might just not be financially possible to do it. So I was surprised in that sense. I was also a little surprised, and that's why I asked that question in the press conference of Josh Whitman of like, was there a benchmark, or was there like he needed to get to this many wins? And he kind of responded that in a pandemic, he kind of even tossed that out. It was just an evaluation of 5 years. What was it built to? Is it something that I could extend these coaches and buy in for longer? And he said he couldn't do it.
Now everyone wants to know who's the next coach going to be.
Yes.
I know you don't make coaching list searches until the time has come with the
Correct.
firing. Now that time is coming. How do you go about this, trying to decide? Because Josh said it's going to happen quickly here. I would expect maybe within a week. Before Christmas, I think is a pretty fair evaluation from what Josh said today.
I would think so.
Do you have a list?
I don't have a list yet. I was just thinking of that this afternoon of, okay, so let's go back to the last time Illinois was a top-end program. And I'm gonna say that's 1991 when John Makovic left. They had been to 4 consecutive bowls, had tied for a Big Ten title in 1990. They finished in the top 10 in 1989, finished number 10 in the country. And it was a real program and really rolling in the Big Ten. So first step was to hire a coordinator. That didn't work. Next step was to go get an offensive guy from the NFL. The Bears offensive coordinator, Ron Turner, was brought in. Let's build an offense. It got up to a Sugar Bowl and then went right back down. Next step was a recruiter. They went and got Ron Zook, and he recruited and got to the Rose Bowl, but then that fell apart. The next step was a program builder, a guy who had learned under Urban Meyer and others, Mike Gundy, of you do this, and he had that big, thick book and that Bible of everything you do to build a football program. That was Tim Beckman. And after 3 years and what happened in the investigation, he's gone. And then the next step was an NFL head coach. This guy's taken an NFL team to the Super Bowl. He can do that, and that has now failed. So they've tried so many different angles of maybe this will work. Maybe this is what we need. That it's hard to say, okay, what's next, That they haven't gone the kind of hot young coach route that's really popular these days. So maybe somebody like, Lewis at Kent State, a 33-year-old guy who may be ready to, see football a little differently in Champaign. It's just hard to say. I haven't made my own list yet, but it'll be interesting to see what route they go, given so many attempts to get back to where the program was in 1990.
And do you think it needs a fresh start, essentially? Like you mentioned, they've tried some different approaches there, and with the third coach in the last decade, where do you go from here?
It's interesting. I did, the Illinois High School Coaches Association had their meeting, their seminar this week. They did it on Zoom, and I was part of it. I actually hosted a Q&A with both Ron Turner and Ron Zook. And one of the questions during the Q&A that I asked Ron Zook is, do you think football is different now? Greg Schiano got to Rutgers, back 20 years ago, and he built the program, but he didn't win until the 6th season. Do you think a coach could even do that anymore? And Ron Zook said, absolutely not. Like, this is a different world. There's transfers out there. There's, it just doesn't exist like that where a guy gets a long time. Frank Beamer didn't win until his 7th year at Virginia Tech. You know, it just doesn't happen anymore. There are transfers. If the transfer rule changes in January, it's going to be immediate. Let's get some guys and win immediately. So given that culture, it'll be very interesting the choice they make. Because it's no longer a hire a guy and hope by year 4, Barry Alvarez, Kurt Ferentz, you know, that one of these guys could be given the time to build. We're kind of now in a world of let's do it quickly and find the right QB who wants to leave LSU and let's win next year. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and we've seen the Lovie experiment didn't work with playing 20-plus freshmen right away. That
Correct.
obviously, I don't see that happening again. Yeah. That also gives me some hope, though, Robert, that Illinois is not going to be in for a rebuild. That if they go find the right coach, which this transfer rule that's expected to pass next month, Illinois doesn't have to be bad again. They can come in and be competitive right away.
The next few weeks will be very fascinating given whoever is hired, as well as what I call the COVID rule, which is all seniors can return next year. So this was they had 33 players walk on senior day against Iowa. Some of those are walk-ons, but you had 33 seniors or at least fourth-year players on the roster. Every single one of them could, if they wanted to, come back next year and play another senior year because this year, in the eyes of NCAA eligibility, just didn't count. So that will be the fascinating thing of this, is this new coach could get a team of 33 seniors. He could come in, convince every one of these guys, look, the pandemic stole what could have been a great season for you guys. Let's stick around. Let's run it back. Let's do a second time and see what can happen. So, will the new coach do that? Or will he maybe say, first year, I need new blood. I'm going to find 18 transfers, and we're going to start with that, like Greg Schiano did at Rutgers this year. So it'll be fascinating to see how they go about it, because everything that's happened with this pandemic and everything that's happened with NCAA eligibility leaves this opportunity for an experienced team next year in 2021.
So which one would you rather see? Because not everyone's going to come back that's on the team right now.
Personally, I've always been this program guy, because Illinois spikes so much. Illinois hasn't really had a program for the last 20 years, but they got to the Sugar Bowl and then they got to the Rose Bowl. They have these spikes up and then right back down. And because of that, I've always, as a fan, I've always wanted to see a program. I want to see long-term success like Wisconsin, like Iowa, what you've seen. But I've been so married to that, and it keeps not happening, that maybe I should open my brain a little bit and say, okay, let's find the brightest coach out there to win as fast as possible, because transfers make that possible and the COVID rule makes that possible. And maybe there's some changes here that could really make something work immediately.
All right, we're going to look for Robert's list on IlliniBoard.com. You got to give me at least one name, though, that excites you. Just one guy.
Can I be a little crazy with it?
That's what we're here for.
I wouldn't mind signing up for the Sark Redemption Tour.
Wow, okay.
Steve Sarkisian, he had a really rough go of it at USC, and he had some personal problems.
Sure.
And he went through the ringer, and he was fired in a really rough circumstance. But his second life here with Alabama as their offensive coordinator, he's running one of the best offenses in college football history right now. Maybe there's a Sark Redemption Tour out there that could sign up in Illinois. So, you put me on the spot, that's the first name that comes to mind.
All right, and do you feel, real quickly here, that Illinois is still an attractive job? Josh Whitman's obviously trying to sell that, but in the Big Ten West, with money to spare here, you would assume that Josh can at least offer a new coach $3-4 million. That's what's in the budget from Lovie. Mm-hmm. Is this an attractive job for a high name?
I will never give up the thought that this is still a sleeping giant. The size of the state, the size of the potential fan base, the size of the potential buy-in. I always point to the 1980s. As soon as Mike White had it turned around, they had 4 years of sellouts, and that's when the stadium sat 79,000 people. People bought in as soon as it was a program again after a rough 1970s and 1960s. And I think it could happen again. You get the right guy, and it's a state with 13, 14 million people or whatever that are ready to maybe buy into something new.
And in-state recruiting, part of the reason Lovie Smith lost his job today.
Yes.
Did not do that very well. Real quickly, do you leave more encouraged today or disappointed about what the last 5 seasons have been?
Probably disappointed, if I'm honest, because, I had even bought into that look, if you play 22 freshmen in 2017 when they're all seniors and they've all had 35 games under their belt, they're going to be really good and experienced and really have something in 2020. So to see it officially fail, that's rough. It's rough to see that just, you put all this hope in a thing and you get to 2020 and it falls flat, and that's hard to see.
All right, an era of Illinois football is officially over. Robert Rosenthal from IlliniBoard.com. Make sure to check out his content. I know that list is going to be coming soon.
Yes, it will.
And
yes,
we're all
it will.
going to be looking
I promise.
forward to that. All right, Robert, thanks.
Thanks.